I just want you to find your truth and stick to it. I know you'll be okay. I know it. At the bottom of my heart, I know it. I love you, Papa.
Welcome back to the Living with Loss podcast. Today I'm joined by a very special guest, Olivia. She runs the Big Grief. Is it the Big Grief? Yeah,
Yeah, it's a
the
big
Big
grief.
Grief page on Instagram. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm very good. It's very weird times though, isn't it? You know, the virus and everything. It's very strange. But where are
Y-
you based? You're based in what? Is it Italy?
and no, I'm in Germany actually. I've been living here for 8 years now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I'm at.
So before we do get into things today, who is it that we will be discussing? And if you don't mind sharing a little bit about their story, sort of thing.
Sure. I lost my mom to breast cancer when I was 23. So it was in 2017.
Yeah,
And the year that she died, my dad got diagnosed with a brain tumor. It's a pretty aggressive one. And he died 2 years later in 2019. So it's just been a year, 2 years. So 1 year. Yeah.
yeah,
And I live in Germany, so it has been very difficult for me to travel back and forth from
yeah,
Germany to Italy, where my family was. Um, but I really honestly don't remember how I did it with my job and my
yeah,
studies
yeah.
because
Of
I was
course.
I was still a student back then. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to be there, so I traveled back and forth between those two countries to be a caregiver to my mother.
Yeah,
And later on, my dad was at a hospice care facility where he was taken care of, and I think that was really, I would say, better for me because
yeah.
I didn't have that.
Emotionally.
Yeah, I didn't have that emotionally. Yeah, I don't want to say burden, but it was really a lot to do to be a caregiver and
Of
grieve
course, and
for the
grieve at the
loss
same
of your.
time. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot to do. So that kind of gave me time to realize what was going on. And I'm really thankful for people that do that kind of job every day.
yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do that. um, yeah, and my dad died in June, actually, June 2019.
So it must have been quite a well, obviously a traumatic, really short period of time for you. I mean, that's for any age really, but you know, especially when you are so young, and I don't want to say dependent on your parents, but you know, you don't,
Mm.
you know, at the age of 23, this isn't something. It's inconceivable. You don't expect something like this to happen, sort of thing. So I can imagine it to have been a very emotionally difficult time for you.
Yeah, it was also very confusing because, I mean, especially in Italy, the families stick really together. So
Yeah,
my the I am the person that I am because of my parents and because
of
of my
course.
relationship to my parents. And so seeing that be torn apart, or seeing them die because of cancer, really just put me in a kind of existential crisis. I really didn't know. What I was going to do, even in the basic everyday things in life. I didn't even know how to um, make decisions or
Yeah.
just think about my future. It was, yeah, really a hard time.
Well, I
Yeah.
guess in a sense you had to grow up quite quickly in the sense of having such a, you know, traumatic episode, or it does definitely, you know, my mum first got ill when I was 8 years old. And obviously she had breast cancer. It came and went. So this cancer was very much in my life. It wasn't like brought on out of nowhere. It was something that was present from a very young age. And having this fear of death constantly looming over my head, I definitely felt like I had to grow up. You know, even at an age of 9, 10, 11, it's the constant anxiety that this you know, your mother at any second, you know, may no longer be around. And definitely you know, there's definitely some rooted anxiety still today from a lot of
Mm.
the trauma that I had. I mean, the weird thing is though, it's like the anxiety that I once had, now that she's passed, it's like I don't so much have that now, because it's like there's been like some sort of conclusion, if that makes sense. Like it is a weird way of looking at it, but the constant anxiety I had, you know, for her safety, health and safety, the fact that, you know, it's kind of been finalized in a way, I don't feel as anxious, if that kind of makes sense for you.
That's very interesting, because I actually feel like in my life I've been projecting that anxiety or fear of losing someone onto basically everybody else that I know
Yeah,
that's still alive. So to me, that fear is not gone, as you
yeah,
said, but it's there, and it's very very much alive, and it really applies to everybody else that I love. So I'm afraid of losing, I don't know, my partner, my
yeah, of course.
brother, everybody else. So it really changes how you see life. And maybe I've heard from many people telling me, well, you don't have to think about the worst. Every time like somebody goes out, you're afraid that something might happen to them and that they might die. But to us, to the people that have been through such losses, they actually know that that's not really that's not really it can happen to everybody.
Yeah,
it's it's not really out of the world. It can happen to you tomorrow,
yeah.
right? And
There's
we
no
know that.
certainty to life. There's no guaranteed
Yeah.
that, you know, you're going to wake up tomorrow and you know, this perfect health. I mean, I want to obviously touch back upon something you mentioned at the start, in terms of the travel. So obviously you were saying you were traveling from Berlin to Italy, during when your dad was in the hospice and your mum was in hospital. I mean, the
Mhm.
fact that you were, you know, in a completely different country, how was that for your emotional well-being?
That's a very good question. Well, I think I just blacked out basically. I
Yeah,
just I talked to my boss, and I kind of made an arrangement that I could work my hours ahead so that
yeah,
I would have more free days at the end of the month, and those days I would spend in Rome with my dad.
yeah,
Or later on, I even had the possibility to do home office, so that
yeah,
was that was easier on me. But I still felt like I had to carry on with my life in the city and the country that I'm living in now. But every time I would go back, I would be dragged, or yeah, just pushed all the way back to my grief life and to
yeah.
my family dying, which is very was a very
Conflicting.
mixed, yeah, and
Yeah,
a very confusing time for me, because I just didn't know. Well, I was seeing that life was going on while my parents were dying, and to me
yeah,
it was like, I don't know if it, first of all, if I was going to make it, and if I actually wanted to be part of that life that was
yeah,
going on, because of all the suffering that I was seeing.
yeah.
If that
It's
makes sense.
No, it does. It's definitely something I thought about a lot as well, because I was, you know, obviously mum had a longer journey, but you know, I was at uni. A lot of my first year of uni, I think that was when she started really to decline, and
Mm.
subconsciously, this wasn't this. I didn't really factor it in at the time, but I rarely came home from uni that first year, and I think whenever I did come home, there were such drastic changes in her physical appearance. You know, I was noticing all these things, and I didn't really speak about it with anyone because you know, I couldn't really make sense of it. But the fact that I was staying at uni, it was so hard to see her in that way. I couldn't constantly bring myself, you know, so it was such a shock to my system that I chose the life that had happiness, had going out with mates, had, you know, just no anxiety looming over me, to the life of this pain. And it definitely, I mean, look, loss is hard. Going through anything like that is hard, but there's
But
nothing that makes it better. Do you know what I mean?
yeah, and how did you deal with it being a man? Because sorry for the very bland question, but I'm
Being a geezer.
I I know that like for example, my partner has lost his dad when he was
Yeah,
18, and he hasn't really spoken about it,
yeah,
or at least not the way I do. It's still there, but he doesn't really talk about that, and
yeah.
I wonder how has that changed your friendships, for example? Like, is it something that people know about, and are they able to talk about that, or
It's a very interesting question. One I haven't actually been asked, but something I do think about quite regularly. I've never, growing up, I was never fully, like most males, I wasn't very open with my emotions. I would discuss them with my mum, and we would have, long discussions about what I was going through, but I wouldn't, it's very uncommon to sit down with a mate and just sort of say like, I'm feeling like this, because what are they
yeah?
gonna say? Do you know what I mean? Like, one
Well, that
time
sucks. Yeah.
one time, I'll tell you what, I've gone to someone, this is like the most blokey answer I've ever heard. I've gone to someone, just saying like, yeah, I'm feeling really shit. Like I just can't get out of bed, and I don't know what to do. And someone just goes, just go out, get out of bed and go on a walk, as if like I haven't thought of that. And like that's
Yeah.
something. But yeah, so I, the reason actually, like I am having these chats and just sort of, putting as a male, but also just showing vulnerability, is because when the loss first happened, this was like October 2019. I was searching up on the internet, I was searching up on YouTube, I was like, grief, like, and a lot of the things I found were just so scientific. They weren't applicable for someone of my age, someone, a young, 20-year-old man who's going through something like this. And so I was like, you know what? This is incredibly hard, and I needed to talk about it. And I've kind of, there's so many things that I'm thinking about right now that you've asked, but I definitely have found that, vulnerability is a strength. Showing your true colors and showing your emotions, no matter if you're a man or a woman, it shouldn't matter. If you, and I've kind of, hopefully these kind of conversations have showed people that it's okay, sort of thing.
Yeah, and that it's really not an uncommon thing that people lose other people that they love.
Yeah,
Because I mean, at least for me, I felt like it just happened to me, and it nobody else
yeah,
knew how to deal with that, and I really felt like something special, if I can say it like that, because I've never heard of anybody else losing their parents or somebody that they love, but
yeah.
but that's really not the case, and I
No,
think
of
that's
course not.
where, yeah, and we, but the only thing is that people don't talk about that. So how am I going to know what you're going through,
Yeah,
or that maybe you're able to understand what I feel if you don't talk about that
yeah,
with me?
100%,
Um,
100%. I mean, look,
yeah,
it definitely brings something up. Of course, you are very open with your emotions on social media. You run the account, The Big Grief. I had a question, and it's just gone out my head, which is quite annoying, to be honest. Okay, no, I was going to say something. So I was going to say, a lot of people in that sort of community have all lost someone. So they look to, but that shouldn't be the case. Like, people, just going through life who haven't lost someone should still reach out, find your account, see my channel, sort of thing, because eventually you will lose someone. And if you have that foundation before it happens, you may understand your loss a bit better. So I do definitely think, first of all, like, the work and what you put out there, it is, I mean, it's very sad writing, but it's beautiful at the same time. Um, but I do think, the audience, it doesn't matter if you haven't lost someone. I feel like you should still find these kind of emotional grief pages and sort of utilize them, sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it has something to do with the culture and the way we have been brought up so far.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, I come from a very Christian country. Of course,
yeah,
I've been living in Rome, um, so I've been brought up with death being something that I shouldn't be in contact with. Um, and in case that would happen to me, somebody else would deal with that, and nobody would talk about the emotions. Like especially when I was a kid, I wasn't able to go to funerals or just really never visiting somebody that was sick at a hospital because it's just
yeah,
and that's just my interpretation because I really thought like people don't want you to see people suffering and they just really try to protect you or maybe just hide the emotions that would come out of this
yeah,
but but I think and that's why I started my Instagram page. It's really just it feels like freedom to be able to
yeah,
talk about that, even if it hurts. And a lot of people really just want to change that pain and make it better. But there are things in life that are not gonna be better. That
yeah,
they just happened, and death just happened, and that's the way it is. There is no positive side to that. It's just death, and some
yeah,
things just hurt, and they have to hurt. So that's why I'm writing because I
yeah.
really
Have you
just
always been a writer? Was this something you came
no.
into?
I just love writing. I love reading, and I've
Yeah,
been writing my whole life, but just for myself. Like I never
yeah, of
published
course.
anything. Yeah, but that's just my way of dealing with it. And another thing that I'm trying to tell people is that a grief journey is your journey. Like nobody else can tell you how to grieve because nobody else is in your own specific situation.
Yeah,
And most of the time I was thinking about it because you said that you found those scientific articles on Google. We just try to find an easy solution to things like I don't
yeah,
know, you read something that somebody said in a newspaper and you apply that to your life and then grief is gone. That's just not how it works.
yeah. No, not at all.
Yeah, but I think that's important to say that everybody has to go through it on its own way, but
Yeah,
that you can still learn to feel that pain with other people that understand what's going through, what you're going through.
completely. Do you know, it's funny that you say that, to be honest. Well, not funny, but it's just a way of I
Yeah.
kind of. But I I also kind of found like I've never been a writer. You know, I've yeah, it was never really my strong suit. But when this loss happened, I had so much going on in my head that I just needed to get it down. So I kind of got into poetry, spoken word poetry, and I feel like a lot of the I don't know if I want to call them articles or like little bits that you put on your page are quite poetic in a
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely found myself that writing um well it's not, it's not the key to my pain, because this pain is everlasting. It hasn't, it's been a year, but it doesn't get easier. You just find ways to manage the pain, and writing has definitely been a source of comfort, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and I think that's, I mean, we're very lucky that we're living in that age of Instagram and the internet. I really don't know how other people, like my parents, would do that.
Yeah,
Um, but but I think there's something special in the online world that really shows you that maybe you get to know somebody that lives on the other side of the world, but you just connect like that, even
yeah,
a few words, because you share that loss or not just the loss, but maybe like the way you deal with that.
yeah,
Um, and that's a special, very special thing of the internet, and I'm really, really thankful that we can use that to talk about
Yeah.
our experiences. Yeah.
Um, I do want to go back to your parents.
Mhm.
Did you have any conversations with them regarding, the loss? Like, was that ever a conversation as if like what may happen, or was it sort of not spoken about? It in a way, do
Um,
you know what I mean?
yeah. Well, I had a very close relationship with my mom, but her dying process was really. I think I listened to your last YouTube interview or podcast interview that you did,
Yeah.
and you said that your mom didn't believe that she was going to die,
No, no.
and that's exactly what my mom did, or how she
Yeah.
felt. She really she was never going to quit, and I mean, she got diagnosed when she was 45, and throughout that 10 years of fighting cancer, she really always tried to find another way of
Yeah.
maybe another therapy, or another doctor that knew somebody else that could help
Yeah.
her, just finding more options to stay alive as long as she could. So I
Yeah.
really felt like she was not, she firmly believed that she was not going to die. And
Yeah.
that really made the process for me even harder, because we both obviously knew that it was going to happen, but
Yeah.
there was this fear of actually talking about that, and admitting that this is what was going to yeah, what was
To
going to
happen.
happen. Yeah,
Yeah.
but nevertheless, I really I think it was a week before my mother died. She was bedridden in my room in Rome.
Sorry, what cancer did she have? You said breast cancer,
Oh,
didn't you?
she had breast cancer,
Okay.
and it went away, and then it came
Yeah,
back
just
3 years
yeah.
later. Um, and what was uh, I forgot what I
Before I
was going
rudely
to say.
interrupted you.
You're good. Well, yeah. So it was a week before she died. She was on medications and taking all the painkillers, and
Yeah.
yeah, everything that she needed. But I still, and I don't know what kind of effect those painkillers and meds have on your body and on your soul. But I just saw that from the outside, and I had those weird conversations with her where I'm not sure if she was present in that
Yeah.
moment or not, but she was. She just told me, I've been fighting between death and life for 3 days now,
Yeah.
and so I looked at her, and I just said, well, okay, and I mean, how does it feel like? Um, are you okay with that, or do you want to go, or how can I
Yeah.
help you?
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, but you keep just you keep pulling me down, something like that.
Yeah.
And I was really shocked by that,
Wow.
because I thought like that's really how she felt, that she wanted to go but she couldn't, because I
Yeah.
couldn't let go of her.
Yeah.
And so I told her, well, if you want to go, you can, but I'm coming with you. And she said, no. She actually laughed at me, and she said, no, no, you're too young. It's not your
Yeah.
turn.
Yeah.
And 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 at the end, I just said, okay, so let's do it like that. You'll just pick me up when it will be my turn. And she said, oh, all right. And
Yeah.
2 days later, it was, I think, on Saturday, she died.
She
And that's
was. She sounds like an incredibly strong woman. The fact that she was, well, in so much pain, to look after her baby, her child. Mum definitely. I think something about mothers, they have this innate strength to always protect their children. Even up till mum's last week, I was reading texts recently that we sent back and forth, sort of thing, and I was going back to uni, going home and things like that quite regularly. And she messaged me, this must have been 5 days before she passed. She was like, Joe, you know what? I'm feeling quite good actually. I feel like it's going to be all right. I'm feeling quite well. Some blood results came back and some markers were lower. And she was like, I'm feeling quite good actually. Bear in mind, like, you know, she just had this, you know, her coloring went and all things like that. But it was back to what you were saying before about this not wanting to go. And you know, it's like, it does show the power of the mind. You know, the mind definitely influences a lot of, well, the body's behavior sort of thing. But yeah, that's just that's just who she was, and she never wanted to accept what was in front of her sort of thing.
Yeah. I think I get mad at this too because my mom was 55 when she died. So
Yeah,
I'm always like thinking, why did she have to die? Like she was just healthy.
yeah,
How can that happen to a healthy young person that just
yeah,
wants to die? And you made me think of my own text messages with my mom,
yeah,
and they're basically just really the same. She's always telling me like, yeah, I'm happy. I'm going
yeah,
to find a way. Don't worry.
yeah,
Just take care of yourself. Like I have these two sides. My mom trying to reassure maybe herself too, but me as well, that she was going to be fine. And then
yeah,
also she trying to teach me to take care of myself.
yeah,
Um, yeah, and I remember a couple of days before she died, she told me that she thought I was going to make it. Like she really didn't have no doubt that I was not going to be able to live without her.
yeah,
Um, and I didn't have that with my dad at all. He had a brain tumor, so he at the end of his days he couldn't really talk. So
yeah,
it was really hard to yeah, to even know what he was thinking or trying to say. So yeah, it was very different. But I have that experience with my mom as well.
yeah. I've seen a lot of your posts are related to your dad's passing. Was that a harder loss for you in a way? I mean, obviously that you can't compare the two because it's silly
Yeah.
to say that, but you know,
mm, I think it was as hard as it was with my mom. I felt like I had we had done and said everything.
yeah,
And with my dad, he just passed within 2 years, and we were not able to talk anything out. So that's
yeah,
just really what struck me, that there are things that just stays open. They
yeah,
just stay open, and you will never have an answer to that. Um,
yeah,
yeah, so maybe in a sense that's what makes my dad's loss harder, compared to my mom's one, if we want to compare it, if we can
yeah,
compare it.
yeah.
Yeah.
How was how did your dad handle what he was going through? I mean, it was obviously a brain tumor, so it's neurologically it's hard to you know, like you said, talk and things like that. But how did he handle it, sort of thing?
Well, my dad was a very proud person. He never really
Yeah,
talked about his feelings, not even about my own feelings. So
yeah,
that has been always hard between us because I'm a very I have a lot of feelings and I talk about my feelings, and that's really just the opposite of who my dad was. So we didn't really fit together.
yeah,
Um, so we never talked about him dying, and that's the hardest thing for me. I
yeah,
really, as hard as that conversation is
yeah,
or might be, that's really that's and I believe that's really so important to have such
yeah,
conversations and to just talk about what it might be for the person that will survive.
yeah,
Um, and how the person that's dying is feeling. Maybe like that would have helped me a lot, but it really never
It's
happened.
easier said than done, though, isn't it? Because it's one of those
Yeah.
conversations that when you do talk about it, it's like accepting, what's in front of you. I mean, for mum, never. So she managed to, well, I say manage, but she um left us a few videos, sort of just saying, "Oh, Joe, you're right, mate." Like, not you're right, mate, but just sort of like just going on about life, like you're the kind of girlfriend I need, what kind of those kind of things. Just a video that I can always look to for inspiration. But she would, that was only something that she managed to do, in the last week, obviously, because it was never a question. Like my dad was saying, if he brought it up to my mum, months before the eventuality of her passing, she would have just laughed him off, like, "Jeff, fuck off. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, what you," like, she would almost get
What are you
angry
talking?
because,
Yeah.
but yeah. And I think once she accepted, I don't think she ever accepted, to be honest. I don't think she ever, in a bit like your mum in a sense. I think she was constantly holding on for us, herself as well. But her kids were her everything, really. I remember this was probably the hardest day for me. This was when so this was when I first, for the first time, I knew that she was going to die. My dad had sat me down and said, she's not, she's got, we might have till Christmas, which I think was him giving a hopeful estimation. It was 2 weeks after he said that. But then, the three of us, me and my two siblings and my dad, we went to the hospice to see my mum. And when she saw us, she just broke down. And when I say I've never seen anybody cry, like I've never seen her or cry as hysterically as I saw in that moment, it breaks you, because there was nothing I could do. I can it was horrible to see, like no one it's horrible to see anybody, in that position, but let alone your mother, someone that you is so strong and someone who protects you, but seeing her like like a Bambi, like, so just, there was nothing she could do, and that was definitely really hard for me to see. It was horrible.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing with me. Um,
Of course.
I I think I have a similar experience. My mom, I think it was 2016, on Christmas time. Um, she um, she was trying to find, yeah, another therapy that she could do, and she found that website of a place in Germany where she could go. And so she made me call them and arrange her stay there, and we brought her. My stepdad actually brought her there, by car. So they drove, like, I don't know what's that, 12 hours from Italy to
Yeah.
Germany, um, to that place. And later, while she was staying there, she found out that the doctors actually weren't doing anything, and that they told her that there was basically nothing that she was there with that they were able to do for her.
Yeah.
And it was, like 2 hours away from I was staying from where I was staying. So I took the train every day to go there. And it was snowing, and it was just, like a very small town, outside of Germany, of Munich, where I'm staying.
Yeah.
And when I was there, I saw her really breaking down every day, because she was realizing that was it, that
Yeah.
that everything she's done and everything that she will try to do will not give her one more
Her
day to
life.
live.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and I remember myself trying to, like, I called her every day, because I had to leave her. I had only like 2 hours, where I could visit her, and then I had to leave. Um but I was calling her every day and texting her, and I really felt that deep. It's not like that she was sad. She was just really devastated,
Yeah, there's a
and
difference between
and
sadness and this pure devastation.
yeah,
I completely
and
understand.
and yeah, and that's what I felt in my heart, and that's why I think I cannot kind of understand what you're talking about, because I was just there with my phone, and all I could do was just type and say, "I love you, mom. I'll take care of you."
Yeah,
Um, and that's when as a child, you, or at least I did so. I started trying to do whatever I could to make it easier for my mom. And then
yeah,
when she died, I started feeling guilty because the things that I did, I felt were not enough to save her.
yeah.
Um, so I have a lot to deal with when it comes to feeling guilty for not being able to, yeah, save her,
It's
basically.
interesting you mentioned guilt. I think obviously I'm not 100% sure, but I know there's like a grief cycle, I believe, that there's like different stages that people enter. And grief is obviously one of the grief, not am I talking about grief? Guilt is definitely
Guilt.
something that, yeah, guilt is definitely something I felt. It was different in a sense to that I couldn't do more. That wasn't my mindset. The guilt for me was, if and I still feel it now, because we're only, you know, not even 18, 15 months, 16 months. She passed October, which I should know. But yeah, it's this guilt when I am having a good time and I am just enjoying life and just back to a sense of normality. I mean, what is normality in 2020? But as normal as you
Mm.
can get. I feel this sense of this guilt, comes into my mind that, I'm not thinking of her and I'm not sad. And it's very hard to manage because, it's not healthy to be sad all the time. It's of course you're allowed to enjoy life and it's not move on, but progress in a sense. But then I get this thought, this guilty conscience that I'm not feeling sad and I'm enjoying life when she isn't here. It's a weird thing to explain, but guilt is definitely something I've noticed I have felt.
Yeah, I had something similar but still different somehow. I I felt like that grief or the death of my parents just divided my life in two parts. I had one part that was focused on my grief and my parents not being there anymore, and then the rest of the life of my life, which was like me in the working space, me being a social person, me
Yeah,
being outside, meeting other people. And it's been very hard to bring those two worlds together. I've been feeling
yeah.
like, um, and that's maybe what has made me, in a sense, a private person more than I was before. Even, yeah, I would say that
It's funny you
before
say
that I,
private person, but you can vocalize your emotions for people to
yeah,
see on social media.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's also interesting. I might think about that too. But I think it's different. It's different when you have to do it with people that you know and that
Yeah, of course.
know you,
Yeah,
when compared to people on the, I just put it
a
outside, I just
thousand
post
percent
something on, yeah. And but I don't have to have that conversation with my brother, which feels
different.
very, yeah,
It's
and
harder, isn't it?
very
It's
hard.
harder.
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
why
I
that is.
Because you have a history with those people, and
And you've
you
both seen
at least,
it.
yeah, and you don't want to see the pain in other people's eyes, so you just try to avoid that.
Yeah,
If,
I can
yeah.
definitely, I can definitely, yeah, I agree because obviously, what I'm very similar in the sense that I share all this for people to see. But if I sat down with my dad or I sat down with my brother, it's a much different conversation. It's almost like we're both just sitting there not wanting, although we have so much to say. It's like like you said, because you can see the pain in their eyes, and it's a lot harder to really engage with someone who also, it feels exactly how you feel, sort of thing. I didn't
Yeah.
even think of that, but it does make, I mean, it's definitely something that is happening to me. If dad brings up mum's name, like he says, oh, how are you feeling about mum, is a conversation I kind of usher, like I'm like, yeah, I'm all right. But then if, say, my mate asked me, how are you feeling about mum, I would give a much more in-depth answer, one that I, without even thinking, really. It's weird, but I guess it's just the very nature of death. It's so confusing for everyone involved.
Yeah. But do you think that kind of conversation with your dad is something that you will might need for the future,
Yeah,
or do you think you're not ready yet?
I think it's definitely, it's weird because he's probably going to watch this episode, but it's it's not that I'm not ready. I just think for some reason I feel this tension when we do discuss it, which is unlike anything I experience when I, like, for example, talking to you is fine. Like it's healthy. I'm getting a lot out of it, and I'm sure you are as well. But when I speak to, it almost feels all too real because we've seen what happened. We saw how the emotion, like what emotionally and just physically happened to my mom, and I think that does hinder the ability, your openness. But I do hope in the future we can definitely sit down and, yeah, just sort of, so if you're listening, dad, it will come at one point. Just be patient. But yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you have
And
any
also I
siblings?
would
Sorry.
say, yeah, I have an older brother. He lives
Okay.
in Rome, so yeah. Um, but I wanted to say that it's if you're talking about your loss with other people, you can always choose how in depth you want to talk about
Yeah.
it. You can, at least for me, it's like I have those pre-constructed sentences where I just put all the information that people might want to hear about that, and just tell them like, yeah, my mom died of breast cancer, and then my dad died too, and basically that's it. Like they don't
Yeah.
really, they, I mean, that's enough information, right? That's even too much
Can I
sometimes.
jump in there? Do
Yeah.
you find
Yeah.
it difficult to, when you meet someone for like a new person, or do you find it difficult to, well, not even difficult, but do you bring up, what has happened in your life? How do you find that?
Yeah, it's been really hard for me. Like
Yeah.
I am actually afraid of meeting people that don't know about my
Yeah.
story, because I'm I mean, I'm 26, and how many 26 years old have lost their parents? They're
Yeah.
not so many, I hope, at least. So
No,
the
there definitely
majority of
isn't.
people, yeah, so the majority of people that you meet assume that you are in a healthy relationship with your family, and you have a job, and you're pretty much stable in your life. And so
Yeah.
whenever, and that's what I've been asking myself for 3 years now. When is the right time for me, or when do I feel comfortable with bringing that up? And why is it important for me to bring that thing up? um
Yeah.
so I still don't know. I'm really just trying to go with the flow, and feel like how, trying to see how the person I'm meeting is. If that person is open enough, then I might tell right away. But um, but because it's such an important thing in my life that has shaped basically everything I know,
Yeah.
it's not something that I can just um, avoid or just not talk about.
Yeah.
That's just not an option. So the question is when is the right time to do so?
Yes, of course. It's, yeah, I get it. It's not a sense of avoidance. It's, well, for me, from my mindset, it's very difficult to, it's bringing up something so traumatic that a lot of people haven't experienced. I mean, you said that how many 26-year-olds have lost parents. I mean, how many 26-year-olds have lost a single parent, let alone two? I mean, it's not, it's very, very uncommon, is that? Yeah, maybe, I
Yeah.
don't know. But it's, I I I I don't bring it up for the sense of the response of the other person. It's for, many, because people don't know how to handle loss and grief, and hopefully, your page and this channel will sort of highlight conversations and the openness of it. It's not something that you need to feel awkward about, but I do find the moment I say, yeah, my mum passed to cancer, instantly I notice a change. It's not like it, it's more of, then it goes from two mates talking to a therapy session where, like, oh, are you okay? Like, and I'm like, I don't need that. But that's because of how the society is around loss and around death. It definitely has been hard to to discuss it, I guess, with people who don't understand, sort of thing.
Yeah, yeah. I and also I would say that I've been afraid of telling people because I don't want to be seen as something different. I just
Yeah.
want to be seen as the 26 year old that's just trying to make it in life. But
Yeah.
as you said before, as soon as you tell them, they're just like, oh, they take a step back and they just really black out and don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Um, and it's a lot, and I don't want it to be on us to have to teach people how to
No,
talk
of course
about
not.
it in a way like I mean I still do that with my work that I do with Instagram. I still I'm out there and I tell people how to yeah how it feels to grieve,
Yeah.
but I don't want to
And
be
there's a
put
real
in the
rawity
situation
to your
to
posts as well. There's a real raw, you don't sugarcoat it, you say it how it is. And I think that's, for so many people, I mean, I definitely found, I know I'm drastically changing the conversation, but that's just how my brain works. But I definitely found that, because I saw your page quite early on. I only reached out to you recently, but I saw um, your page very early on, and it was definitely helpful for myself to navigate, a lot of the grief that I felt, because it's like you you feel alone when you lose someone. You feel like you said at the beginning, no one else in the world knows what I'm going through. I'm the only person. I'm the only one who's lost someone, which isn't true. But until you hear it from someone else, and hearing it
Mm,
from you, and seeing that, it was definitely like, okay, these are, it make like it's making sense of everything that you have. So the work that you do is definitely incredible. How do you find it mentally? I mean, when referring to, of course, grief is something you think about a lot because it's very much on your mind, but constantly writing these posts, is that something you find hard, or is it, in a sense, kind of like helpful for yourself?
it's very helpful actually. Um I have those, I don't know what it is, but I just have a feeling that I need to write, and I need to put my feeling into words. And
Yeah.
sometimes it doesn't work, and so I just don't post anything. I don't post if I don't feel those words, if those
Yeah.
words don't make sense to me. And
Yeah.
so that's been a very good exercise to just tune in with myself and focus on how am I feeling, and are those feelings something that I want to talk about, and if I want to talk about it, how do I want to do that? I just post. I'm not that kind of person that talks into a camera doing stories.
Yeah.
I'm not there yet. Maybe someday, but
one day in the future.
yeah. but I just love to write, and I think
Yeah.
It's just the whole process of being able to sit down and think about how you're feeling, and taking the time to translate those feelings into words.
Yeah.
And there's something very sacred about that to me. And so it makes me so happy and proud that that I'm able to put it out there and then see that other people really understand what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something magical about that, I would say.
I'm sure, when people reach out, and, I get it as well when, someone reaches out and says, I really needed to see this thank you. I mean, you must feel so, well, obviously your parents would both be so proud, but, in yourself, knowing that you've helped so many people with just your words must be, there's a sense of, well, it's not it's not happiness, but there's a sense of, like, you know I
Yeah.
don't know the word, not accomplishment, but like a sense of, like, pride I think
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely, it, it's do you know what, I do find it hard constantly thinking about loss all the time, but at the same time I do really enjoy these chats. I do find, I mean, if these chats just open up things I haven't even thought about, as soon as you say something and I'm like, okay, actually that's something that I've been thinking. So I do definitely really benefit, emotionally from these chats, and I'm sure people do as well. I was reading one of the things you wrote, actually. I have it on my phone, so I'm gonna read it back to you. So I
Yeah.
really liked it. In the midst of all the suffering, love was the only thing I could give to you. So I did, but death revealed a truth I didn't know about. My writing is awful, but that no love would save you from leaving. I really felt connected to that. When you do write these things, is it just because that also has such a poetic tone to it? Do you literally just write from your heart and see what comes onto your paper?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. Um, I I really sometimes I also just cry while I write it. um,
I get
yeah,
that.
it's a lot. Yeah.
Someone saw that
But
from outside. Like, what?
yeah, but I don't want Instagram to be that thing where just you just post about your fitness inspiration.
Yeah, of
I
course.
just I just really want it to be true to myself. Um, and being true to myself means writing about the things that hurt. Um, so yeah, I just write about. Sometimes I take it takes me days to write those three words.
3 magical
But
lines.
yeah, but there's a whole universe inside those
Yeah.
words, and so I really hope that when I'm able to put them out, it doesn't always work. Sometimes I'm frustrated because it doesn't work. It doesn't sound well. It
Yeah.
doesn't have that rhythm. So I just take my time, but that's just me because I like to write. So
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
Yeah.
like myself, I'm sure loads of people appreciate, what you are putting out there. I do want to wrap this up, but before we do, I do end this on a note. If you could have a conversation with your parents, if that was something that I don't know. I don't know the factors, but if you could have a conversation, what is it that you would say to them? Is it you would let them know?
I think I would say that I'm sorry. I'm just I'm just sorry about how it went, and that it's nobody's fault, but that I hope that they would understand how angry I am about that
Yeah.
meaningless death or thing that happened to us. um, and uh, and that I just really hope that they felt that I loved them from the start to the end, and that they were not alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
How
okay.
about you?
That's beautiful. I feel like you have you written that on your page. That was
No,
Jesus.
not yet.
I'm gonna start crying.
Yeah, please do, because I'll do that too.
For me, it's just letting her know that I will be okay. Um, it's definitely a big worry for her that without her, my life would crumble. And in a sense, it has. But when something crumbles, something else is built from it. And definitely, I would like her to know that I will be okay going forward, and like this hasn't changed my life at all. Well, no, that's stupid. Of course, it's changed my life, but it won't define me, sort of thing. I won't let it define me. Yeah, that's what I'd tell her.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing.
You're very welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today. I really learned. Well, I learned a lot from this conversation.